There is a difference between understanding something and embodying it. If you listen to part one of our episode on Rudolf Steiner's exercises for moral authority, you now understand the framework. And if you haven't listened to that episode, pause this one, go back, listen to that episode, because that'll give you a good overview of how we're going to take this into its application today. You've been introduced to Rudolf Steiner, to the 6 subsidiary exercises, to the idea that your thinking, your emotions, your discipline, they're not just personal development tools. They are the foundation for your leadership. But here's where most people stop. They learn it. They read it in a book. They listen about it on a podcast. They resonate with it. You may even have been nodding your head and agreeing with it. But nothing changes until you actually embody it. Insight without integration is just intellectual entertainment. So today, we're crossing the line into the practical applications of how you can apply these moral exercises into your leadership so that they strengthen your connection on all 4 planes: spiritual, mental, emotional, and the physical plane where everything manifests. We are taking these 6 exercises out of philosophy and bringing them into the places where they actually matter: into your business, your decisions, your leadership, your visibility, your money, because your business doesn't respond to what you know. It responds to what you do. It responds to how you operate. And how you operate is shaped by how clearly you think, how consistently you act, how you handle pressure, how you interpret challenge, how you are open to the truth, and how integrated you are as a leader. So if part 1 was about awareness, part 2 in this episode is about application of Rudolf Steiner's moral exercises to your business and your leadership. I am Kimberly Spencer, founder of Crown Yourself, international TEDx speaker and best-selling author, high-performance business coach and visibility strategist to sovereign visionary leaders who are stepping into their power, claiming their authority, showing up fully expressed, and expanding their leadership and building their empires. Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where we elevate the conversation for conscious leaders to show up and equip them with the tools necessary to stand out in their field. In this episode, we are diving into the 6 applications for Rudolf Steiner's moral exercises into your business. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like this. And if you love this episode and you love the one before it, please do us a favor and drop us a review. Every review helps expand this message for the Crown Yourself podcast to get it into more hands and into more ears and into more hearts of more leaders who are choosing to up-level their consciousness, grow in their spiritual awareness, and connect back into building empires rooted in sovereignty and in service. Today, we are breaking down how each of these 6 moral exercises becomes a business advantage and a leadership standard. It's not just something you practice, it's something that you actually can become known for. Because when your internal world is stable, your external results become inevitable. Let's dive in. In part 1 of this series, the first moral exercise is in control of thinking. How to apply this in business and in your leadership is, do you have strategic clarity and decision discipline? In business, this means, do you have a single focus? Do you have thinking blocks with no multitasking, no multiple tabs open? Yes, I'm talking to you, visionary leaders, myself included. Do you have clear written decisions? What is the problem that you're solving for? What assumptions are you making about that problem? How do you separate data and intuition? This is where you have clear written decisions where you know, or at least you're curious about, what is the problem that I'm solving? Am I making about this problem? What has to be true for that to be true? And then where could I be wrong about this? Right perception is what directs the right action. This is where data and intuition can both be separated and also integrated. A practical example could be, before any major decision, you want to write down, what do you know? What do you assume to know? What do you feel? And what do you actually intend to do with this decision? What this prevents is you from having shiny object syndrome. Yes, I'm talking to you, visionary leaders with 15 ideas this past week. This also prevents strategy whiplash, where one day you have a great strategy and the next day you're enacting some other thing and your team doesn't know which way to row because you're going in 14 different strategies in 14 different directions. This also prevents emotional decision making disguised as intuition. A lot of times, our emotions can hijack our intuition. We think we're making an intuitive decision, but really it's rooted in emotion. So, being clear and strategic about understanding, are you making a clear, strategic decision? And understanding, being able to look at the full picture of what you know, what you assume to know, because that's always where our ego likes to come into play, what you feel, and what you intend. What this creates in applying the practice of control of thinking is it creates clear messaging, clear offers, trust from clients, trust from team, trust from partners. People see you operating in integrity, not just with doing the things that you say you're going to do, but as the business as a whole, people know who you are, what you stand for, and what you are creating in this world. Moral authority in business actually begins with intellectual honesty. Steiner's second moral exercise is control of will. How this translates into business is, are you reliable and do you have execution integrity? In business, this means, are you keeping the promises that you make, not just to your clients, but to yourself, to your team, especially the small invisible ones. In your leadership, this means you say you're waking up at 6:30 to exercise. Are you actually waking up at 6:30 to exercise? Leadership can mean you say the podcast is going to come out on Thursday. Is the podcast actually coming out on Thursday? Or maybe did you happen skip it to move it to Friday? We want to be aware of those little tiny breaches of integrity. You want to choose one daily non-negotiable leadership action. Pick something, reliably execute, do it every day. If you're just getting started in business, this can very clearly be reaching out to 5 people a day on LinkedIn, starting 5 conversations per day and keeping that commitment. If you're more established in business, this can be reaching out to 5 potential partners. This can be posting 5 times a day. I don't know why the number 5 came to me, but this means choosing one daily non-negotiable leadership action. Ship it consistently. Do it consistently. It's a practice. So, an example could be an outreach example. It could be a writing example. It could be a follow up example. It could be a team check in example. It doesn't mean that it's urgent. It means that you're consciously choosing to be reliable in executing so that your team knows that they can rely on you. Maybe that is at 11:30 every day, you commit that you are available in Slack to your team. This could mean that at 9 a.m. every day, you are creating your content for 1 hour for the first hour of every day. This is not urgent. You're doing the important things and you're consciously choosing to do the important things. This prevents burnout cycles. This prevents overpromising. This also prevents identity based productivity, which basically is, I work when I'm inspired. Well, this prevents feeling based productivity, which means I work with that when I'm inspired or I write when I'm inspired. You face that resistance. You sit down at your desk and you face that resistance and you do the dang thing that you were put on this planet to do. And you don't base it off of feeling whether you show up. You do it regardless because you are reliable and you keep the promises that you make to yourself. What this creates in your business is it not only creates self-trust in yourself as a leader, it creates trust in the team as a whole, and it creates trust with your clients. It creates trust with your audience that they know you're going to show up 9 a.m. every day for that live stream. It creates predictable revenue. Consistency builds authority far faster than charisma. Charisma will get you started, but it can make you be perceived as flighty if you go on emotional whims, versus consistency is a spiritual act. The third of Steiner's moral exercises is equanimity of feeling. What this translates to in business: do you have emotional regulation under pressure? Are you incorporating feedback into your identity? And oh my gosh, what does this mean about me? And oh my gosh, they don't like my program. They must not like me. And oh my gosh, this means I'm going to fail because I'm a failure and da 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 da. No, that is not having emotional regulation under pressure. Learn to pause before responding to both praise or criticism. Learn to take feedback for what it is. I needed to practice some emotional regulation and just sharing this because I got so hyped up and so passionate. As a practice, you can practice the 24-hour rule. This could be for sending an emotional customer service email. This could be for a contract dispute. This could be for a pricing resistance. This is allowing have a breath to engage, to check in, and then to make it right. This prevents reactive leadership. It prevents against emotional leakage and into branding and into sales. I have seen this countless times in the Facebook feeds where someone has a bad day in business and suddenly it's like, blah, let me just pour it out and like project all over into how the industry is this. And it creates a victim mindset, quite frankly, because then you're a victim of your own emotions. And you're posting and branding from that place of victimization because you are currently at the mercy of your own emotions. This also prevents from having struggles with clients or team. It allows you to approach problems from a regulated place. If you practice emotional regulation under pressure, or what Steiner called the equanimity of feeling, then you actually have a calm leadership presence. People have psychological safety around you. You have clean negotiations, clear boundaries, and clear contracts. Leaders don't suppress emotion, but they are able to regulate. The fourth of Steiner's moral exercises is in positivity. And now, what this translates to in business is having ethical optimism and opportunity recognition. This means you're looking for value, even in failed launches, even in difficult clients, even in market downturns, even in economic downturns, without denying reality. A practical example is after a failed launch, let's say you do a masterclass and you only get 3 signups. What does this allow me to refine? What process broke down that this demonstrates that these results actually demonstrate? Okay, well, maybe it's not you as a person. Very rarely is person or as a leader. More often, it's maybe you didn't post enough, or maybe you didn't have a LinkedIn invite, or maybe you didn't get the word out enough, or maybe you didn't activate your ambassadors or your affiliates to promote this launch. Okay, great. That is not a failure. Then that's information that refined a skill set that allowed you to clearly define, okay, well, we need to have these systems and processes in place before our next launch. This allows for maturation in your company. This allows you to mature as a leader. It prevents you from running a victim narrative of, oh, this must mean I suck at business because I only got 3 people to sign up. No, it could mean that you're new. It could mean that you are unpracticed in the skill of sales. Okay, great. It could mean that your messaging was off. It could mean that your ads weren't working. It could mean that you didn't activate your affiliates. It could mean 15 other million different things. Probably not just that you're a victim and that you suck. This exercise of positivity allows you to look at the whole picture with optimism and say, how is this preparing us for the next success? This prevents against us having cynicism, and this also prevents against us having market resentment, which is very, very, very important for this time in the world right now, because there are a lot of things going on in the world. I'm not saying they're good or bad or whatever they are. It just is what it is. And we don't want to resent what's going on. We want to work with what's going on so that we can thrive. When you practice positivity and ethical optimism, you are actually creating brand resilience, and people want to come on board when there is a brand that has resilience. For example, when COVID hit in 2020, I told my team as we were stuck in Australia, I said, we are doing 90 days from fear to faith. And for 90 days, I was blogging and I was messaging and I was sending out emails daily to our community of Crown Yourself members, of everyone who is on our email list, on the Crown Yourself list. We were sending out messages on social all about moving from fear to faith, because in times of uncertainty, people are looking for some stability amidst the chaos. And I said, this is a positive opportunity for us to be able to stand in the middle of this chaos and support people in directing their mindsets to focusing on faith, possibility, opportunity, rather than, oh my gosh, it's COVID. Oh my gosh, am I going to get the virus? Oh my gosh, people are dying. All the things that are easily able to distract us and create market resentment, create victim narratives, and keep us trapped in feeling like we're powerless. You are not. People want to be around leaders who are choosing to stand up and be in an energy of possibility. Positivity is not denying the reality of the world. It is actually having pattern recognition to say, okay, this piece, and this piece can actually be an opportunity because of this circumstance of what's happening in the world. And that actually creates greater wisdom when you apply it. Steiner's fifth exercise was an open-mindedness. What this means in business is having adaptive intelligence and ethical influence. It means holding onto your beliefs loosely. It means testing ideas before defending them. It means learning from people that you may not like. What this can look like is the belief of, oh, it's the economy. Is it? Maybe that could just be a belief. What if perhaps it's the belief that you have is the reason why we're not getting clients is because our pricing is too high or too low. Well, that's a possibility. There could also be you may also not have the right messaging. You may also not be targeting the right market. You may also need to pivot your lead generation system. There's a million other opportunities to look at when you have an open mind. So I would encourage you to have at least a quarterly belief audit. What assumptions about money, about clients, about leadership, about business are you operating from? And where might you possibly be wrong? The thing is, our egos hate to be wrong. They're so scared of being wrong because they're desperately clinging for us to be right to keep us safe. But when we allow for open mindedness and when we are in a practice of actively seeking where are we wrong in our thinking that is creating a misdirection, misalignment, and not getting us the results that we want, this prevents against having dogmatic branding. This prevents against us having outdated strategies that maybe worked 2 years ago but no longer work. And this also prevents against us having an echo chamber in our own leadership where we allow for people with different perspectives, beliefs, experiences to come to the table because that actually can strengthen the whole of the entity of the business. This can actually create innovation. One of my clients took this belief in open-mindedness, and which basically is like growth mindedness on steroids, and messaged his team and said, we are having 2-week innovation sprints. He wanted to make it okay for his team to be wrong, play with testing and innovation. The result? He had more support, more growth from having 2-week innovation sprints, and he's only 4 weeks in. This also creates greater market relevance because you're able to see and explore and adapt to what the market is requiring, to what is happening. It is what it is, and how can we accept more what it is and then adapt accordingly? This also creates greater thought leadership without arrogance. So a lot of times when we have arrogance, we are stuck in our beliefs and we're trapped in pride. But conscious leaders are open to evolve. We're also open to be wrong because in order to evolve, we have to be wrong about who we have been. That's a podcast for another day. The sixth practice that Steiner talks about is harmony of the soul, which means basically having integrated leadership and sustainable power. In business, this means having strategy, having will, and having emotion and intuition. It's a holy trinity where all of these play into place, where it's the mental, the emotional, manifesting in the physical realm. You build a business that doesn't require you to abandon yourself. So you don't have to hide part of your voice in order to fit in with that business. So this also can be in practice where you look at, where am I over efforting? Where are things feeling just too hard? What am I avoiding? This is probably one of my favorite questions to ask any of my clients is, what are you avoiding? And then write that list down. Where are you leading from alignment? Where do you need to be more courageous? Because when you ask yourself the question, what are you avoiding? Typically, one of those things on that list is going to be your tipping point of courage. And that's going to be what's going to remove you from the shame, the guilt of avoidance and move you up the emotional map of consciousness in emotions, like Dr. David Hawkins talked about, into courage, where you're actually moving the needle and things move faster when you're in courage. This prevents from having founder collapse. This prevents you from having an ethical drift of your brand of your strategy. This prevents you from having success without fulfillment because you're constantly checking in around your own alignment, around why things are feeling hard and what may be over efforting for the sake of trying to prove yourself or from forcing something rather than actually truly being integrated in your sustainable power. When you are truly integrated in having sustainability and in your true source of power and heart brain coherence, in alignment between your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, and your higher consciousness, that's what creates longevity. That's what creates magnetism. And that's what creates sovereign leadership. That's what creates power that is deeply integrated. When you're operating from force, eventually you implode. That's where burnout comes from, is us trying to force and perform in an area that was not necessarily meant for us. So we want to constantly be checking in to our strategy, to the actions that we're taking on a daily basis, and to the emotions that we're feeling and what's going on, so that we don't end up abandoning ourselves or building something that we eventually realize we climbed the wrong ladder. When you apply Steiner's moral exercises to business and to your own leadership, this moves you from a hustle force mentality into operating from inner authority, into operating from full alignment. It moves you from performative pleasing into sovereignty. This replaces hustle and force with inner command. It replaces forced branding for the sake of looking nice on Instagram for coherence. It replaces domination of the market and force and trying to conquer everyone with earned authority. When you can build a business and your own leadership from practicing Steiner's moral exercises, this is the foundation for conscious capitalism. This is also the foundation for values-based scaling. And this is also the foundation for building high trust brands and movements. In our next episode, we are going to be diving into how to take this into a weekly CEO operating system, how to apply these practices from Steiner's moral exercises, from taking them as applications and concepts in business to actually, what does this look like on the day-to-day? What does this look like as a CEO in how you operate and how you move as you build and scale and grow and serve with the gifts and talents that you are given? If you love this episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode like this. And as always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.